Umpile. Okay, so you'll remember that we are busy with our comprehension work for page 7, right? And when we do comprehension work, we have to remember 3 things. We have to pay attention to our mark allocation. So we need to pay attention to how many marks is the question out of, so that we know how much information to give to earn those marks, right? The next thing that we have to pay attention to is that we answer all our questions in full sentences, right? And then the last thing that we have to remember is that we must use some of the words that are in the question to start our answer. Okay, so if you use some of the words in the question to start your answer, then you are very likely to construct a good sentence when you answer your questions. So what I'm going to do for you today, because we cannot meet because of load shedding, what I'm going to do is we finished on question number 5 for page 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you start your answers, and then you are going to finish them by yourselves. So I'm going to help you construct the beginning of your answer. So we're going to use some of the words in the question to start the answer, and then you are going to search for the answer yourself on page 7. We'll start off by reading page 7 before we go through the questions. I'm only going to go from question 6 until question number 11, because we've already answered until question number 5. So let's go check it out. Okay, let's read page 7. Page 7 says, right about now, you're probably thinking, so far, this is a pretty boring book. But just wait, because in a second, it's about to get really good. This one morning, when Roland's dad was on one of his trips, something totally crazy happened. Roland woke up early to practice his flute, but then it got really cold in his room. And when he looked out of the window, he couldn't believe it was snowing. I'm going to read that again without pointing at each word. But if I ask you to read this page, I might ask you to point at every word that you're reading. But now I'm going to track line by line, and I'm going to read without pointing, okay? So, right about now, you're probably thinking, so far, this is a pretty boring book. But just wait, because in a second, it's about to get really good. This one morning when Roland's dad was on one of his trips, something totally crazy happened. Roland woke up early to practice his flute, but then it got really cold in his room. And when he looked out of the window, he couldn't believe it was snowing. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our questions, and we're going to see what question 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 have in store for us. Remember, we've already worked on our answers from question 1 until question 5. So the last answer we got for question 5, which says, what happened in Roland's room, for 1 mark, we've already answered. It got really cold in Roland's room, and we gave ourselves a tick and 1 mark for that. So let's go look at what question 6 says. Question 6 says, what did Roland see when he looked out of the window? And it's for 1 mark. What did Roland see when he looked out of the window? And it's for 1 mark. So remember, we said we have to use some of the words that are in the question to start our answer. I've already started your answer for you, but you're gonna have to finish it by yourself. So our question is, what did Roland see when he looked out of the window? So your answer will start with, when Roland looked out of the window, he, and then we'll change see to the past tense and say he saw. So that way we will have used some of the words or most of the words in our question to start our answer. So our answer for number 6 will start with, when Roland looked out of the window, okay? And then we can say he, and then change the verb see to the past tense. Okay? He saw. Okay? So when Roland looked out of the window, we'll put a comma there and say he saw. And then you can go back to page 7 and find out what he saw when he looked out of the window. And when he looked out of the window, he couldn't believe it was snowing. So you will finish your answer based on the information that you see in the last paragraph and in the picture. You will finish number 6 for us. Okay? Question 7 says, could Roland believe what he saw? For 1 mark. Could Roland believe what he saw? For 1 mark. Okay? So what we're going to have to do is quickly check on page 7. What does it say? It says, and when Roland looked out of the window, he couldn't believe it was snowing. I'm not going to finish the answer for you, but I will help you start it. It says, could Roland believe what he saw? And we have to use some of the words in the question. So we will use Roland and believe. And then you can finish the answer by yourself. So question 7, which says, could Roland believe what he saw? You will start that answer with Roland. Then you will tell us here if he could. We'll say Roland could, and then you will tell me if he could or he could not. So Roland could, then something is missing here. Roland could believe. The word believe is in the question. So is in the question, so you can use it to start your answer. Roland could something believe, and then what do we have in the rest of the question? What he saw. We can use those words in the answer as well. Roland could something believe what he saw. This is almost a full answer for that answers question 7. You only have to just add 1 word, which will make your answer correct. Okay? Let's look at question 8. Question 8 says, explain what is happening in the picture, and it's for 3 marks. So the words that we are going to use from your question to start your answer are in the picture. So question 8 says, explain what is happening in the picture. So let's use some of the words that are in the question to start your answer. And you will start your answer for number 8 with in the picture. In the picture. And then because your question is out of 3 marks, you will then tell us 3 different things that are happening in the picture. You'll tell us 3 different things that are happening in the picture. Let's look at question number 9. Question number 9 says, find 8 nouns on page 7. So this is easy. I'll start it with I'll use some of the words in the question to start the answer for you. Find 8 nouns on page 7. That's easy. You will number for number 9, and then you will say 8 nouns on page 7 are, and then you will list your noun, and then you will list your 8 nouns that you find on page 7. Okay, and then question 10 says, find 5 verbs on page 7. You will start it with 5 verbs on page 7 are. and then you list them. Find 5